Greetings, friends, and welcome to the Gaming Adventure and Discovery Explorers.
A show about our adventures and discoveries as we explore the world of gaming.
On today's show,
We're going to talk about the campaign prep I've been doing for Vornheim Halcyon. Galen's going to talk about some world building he's been doing, and we're going to take another look at the Return of the Jedi and Han Solo's rescue.
let's explore. All right, Chad. So
Yeah.
the campaign that I'm a player in, at your
Yes.
mercy.
I'm so excited.
Okay, let's talk about it. What do you got going on? Let me tell me some about this world without being spoily, right?
Yeah, no, I won't spoil anything. So any you, including my co-host and anyone who wants to watch, I won't spoil anything. But it is going to be a little bit of behind the curtain of what's happening. So as we talked about last time, we had session 0 a few weeks ago, and we have the first session. It's going to be a monthly campaign. It's scheduled for I think a week from this coming Saturday, so about a week and a half from today. And so I've been busy, preparing, and so there's been a lot, and it's great to have this amount of time. So the first, I don't know if it's the first thing, but one thing that I did about a week and a half ago is I sent an email to all the players, and so this campaign, one thing completely decided that I was leaning towards last time that we spoke was to just set it in Vornheim. So I'm going to be using Vornheim, this complete city kit that was created by Zack Snyder. And so that'll be based on that, but as with everything, it's going to be a collage of that and my own stuff, and I'm going to put it in Halcyon. And so Halcyon is the world that I created early in my previous campaign, and it's fairly generic fantasy setting. When the Tomb of Annihilation came out and Chult was featured, I got really excited and I erased part of it and added Chult. And a little while ago when I think we talked about it here, when I ran Saltmarsh, the Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh, the module,
Right.
I added Saltmarsh to Halcyon. So everything can go there, right? So why not Vornheim? But one thing that's been, I felt like it was time to grow up a little bit. And so I've had this same hand-drawn map, and I don't think it's nearby. But anyway, that I drew. No, it is here. It's right here. So I have the same hand-drawn map that I have had for about 4 years that I've been working on. And I've taken pictures of it. I've lost it for like months at a time, and then I refound it again. So I just felt like it was time to digitize it. And so I did that. So I went to Hexographer, which is just hexographer.com. And this was something that Matt Colville recommended. So I watched his video, and he does some world creation. Now, he was creating something from scratch. But in this case, I used the free version of that to just translate my map into that format. And so so I did that, and it worked pretty well. I would recommend it. This isn't a review. I haven't compared a bunch, and
Right.
I've only begun to really learn how to use it. But it worked pretty well, and it took a reasonable amount of time. And so anyway, so I was able to export it. I sent it around to everybody with kind of instructions and a reminder about what I wanted them to do. That there was that secret question, so everybody should be telling a secret to someone else. Galen, have you done that yet? Have you told the person who has your secret what your secret is?
I have delivered my secret.
Nice. Excellent. Awesome. Oh, so you're covered both ways, because I also know that you have been given your secret by the person who has it. So,
Yes.
perfect. And Galen, I know you also did my other request. You're so far the only player to do this, but it's
Haha.
early yet, which was to send me your character sheet.
Yeah.
And so, I have to confess, as a DM, there have been times, especially in 4th edition, but even in 5th edition, where I just was like, y'all's character sheets are your problems. That is out of my scope. Like, just try not to cheat.
Right.
And I don't,
Yes.
and when I was a new DM, I think that was the right decision. Because really there was just so much I was trying to handle. I just didn't have the bandwidth,
Yeah.
to go into the different characters. And in 4th edition, it was all the powers, and
Oh God,
even
yes.
5th edition,
Yeah. Stay
everybody
well
had 10
away from
powers.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then And then with fifth edition, even that first campaign, it was a new system, and I was more worried about just the general mechanics. And one thing about fifth edition that I enjoy, but can be a pain, is that really every class has a mini game or micro system in it. Like clerics have divine, a divine whatever. What is it? Holy divinity or something. Where they can turn things or whatever. And wizards have their spell book, and warlocks have a different thing, and sorcerers have their sorcerer point, and all that. And I was too scared of it all. But this time, I'm really trying to change my focus, and part of the ways that I'm trying to grow as a DM is to really build the game around the player characters.
Okay.
And there's two ways that I want to do that. One is I want to really invest and kind of have, and I mentioned this last time, have the story kind of come from you or be part of you, not just have you try to jump aboard the plot. I want the plot to be you, all of you. Not everyone who's watching, but everyone who's in this campaign. You, Galen, and the other five, the other four. So there was that angle, and so I wanted the backgrounds, and I wanted, whatever kind of, for you, I wanted, it actually, I didn't see it on your character sheet, but I wanted your, which god you were worshiping, and I asked you about that.
Yes, right.
And so I could just start thinking about, like, oh, okay, so I want to, it's something I've hand-waved a lot, the role of the gods in my campaign, and I want to do that less.
Yeah, right.
And, I was really inspired by, it was... Holly Conrad she's a streamer here on Twitch, and she also goes by Commander Holly, I think. Commander Conrad, Commander Holly, I think. She streams with the D&D
Commander
folks,
Holly, I
and
think.
she's got that sounds good. And so she's just wonderful. She does a lot of cosplay and does a lot of cool stuff. And she's the DM for Trapped in the Birdcage, which is an official D&D, and it's on YouTube, and we'll put a link in. And so her DMing style is very similar to mine. And she's only done, I think, 2 seasons with this group. And her group that she DMs is really a balance of new players and experienced players. And she loves, and also she loves Planescape and Sigil, which just reminded me of that game I'm playing, Planescape Torment. I think of her all the time. So. Anyway, that's all beside the point. But she's a great DM, and her greatness is a way that is aligned with mine. It's like what she's good at is stuff I aspire to be good at. And some of our decisions and the way we make our calls when DMing are things that I would do. Like when a player asks, like, how do I do that? I want to do this. She adjudicates it very similarly. She might be a little nicer cop than I sometimes am, but it's very similar. And the other thing that she's great at is when the new player says, like, how do I do that? And I think the new character is even a rogue, one of the players I'm thinking of. And he's more experienced now because they've been playing for 20 sessions or whatever. But early on, he had no idea how to run his character. And she knew. Okay. Like, she was like, oh, no, this is how sneak attack works. Which is, I think rogues are also very common in my campaigns. You played one last time. And so she just knew, like, no, you get to roll, 2 D6s or 1 D6, depending on what level they're, whatever. And here's the circumstances that you could do that. So that then she could coach in real time. And that's the kind of thing that I want to be able to do better. We've got a variety of experience. Everyone's played some D&D, but we have a few members in this party who haven't played a lot of D&D. And so both for them, and I think everybody at the table is likely to be stretching their... experimenting with new character builds or whatever.
Yes.
So, I want to get a little head start on that. And I think I've gotten to that point where I think I was actually a little lazy in that last campaign. I could have probably done better, looking up, like, okay, how does that work? And so I can help you guys along the way. Yeah. So all that was just to say why I wanted your character sheets. So, what I did with that email was, ask for character sheets and decided and communicated how I'm going to give bonus experience points. So we'll be using XP this time for level advancement. And I'll track it. So I have a Google Doc already, queued up and ready to go. And I've also made it clear that there'll be times where I'll offer bonus XP, But one of the things at session 0 that one of the experienced players, just mentioned, not even as a complaint or a concern, but just as a thing, as a possibility, which is that sometimes players can get a little resentful if they don't have an opportunity, or if they feel like the extra experience points are being earned unfairly. And I don't. It's easy to not expect people to feel bad, but things happen in unexpected ways. And so I really munched on that, and I was like, yeah, how do I prevent that? So one of the things I'll do is just have it, if I do award extra XP, make it clear up front what the offer is and have it available to anybody. So, for this case, anybody who sends me their character sheet before the start of the next game, gets 25 or 50 experience points. So then you can show up at 12:30 for a game that starts at 1 and create your character and snap a shot of it and send that to me, or let me take a shot of it, covered. So I want to make it easy. So
free XP, that's like 1 kobold.
Exactly. Now, if you show up late, though, and haven't sent me your XP, no. Like, no hard feelings, but no, I'm going to drop the line there. So
I like it.
Because I also would like to incentivize people to show up on time, but,
Yeah. Yep.
So I sent that out, and, been talking to you and been talking to another player who I happen to live with, and we've been kind of talking about how these things are all going to fit together, and it's super fun. Really... I don't know if I really, I think in terms of, and I don't do this, but people often talk in terms of sandbox versus railroad for the type of campaign that you're running. And the idea is that the railroad is very linear, and the player characters really don't have a lot of choices. There's not many branches. They just, they just go along and have their adventure, and maybe the way they solve the problems are they have freedom, but what the problem is and where they go is pretty linear. And then sandbox, the idea is the world is big and they can do anything within it. And then there's, and I think really the truth is of how I run it. It's usually somewhere in between. But this time actually the way I usually run it is like, I don't know if you like those little cars that you can drive, but they actually have real wheels, but they're on a track. And so you have to turn around. You have to turn around the track, and the wheels really turn. But if you go too far, you're just going to hit the edge, and it'll just make you go around the track. And I think that's kind of how I DM historically.
I like that analogy.
Like, you have some freedom, but it's pretty much laid out. So this time I want to turn that around. So I do want to make it what people typically call a sandbox. That doesn't mean just kind of putting you in a world and saying, go find adventure, but it is putting you in a world and then having, playing out a few things that are going to happen to you, around you, near you, and then letting you figure out how you want to do it, and putting a lot of hooks out in the world and making you decide which one you want to follow at any given time. And so...
Are you planning on having a major hook?
I am not. I am planning. Current plan is to not have a major hook.
Great.
Probably what I expect will happen is that I will put out a lot of minor hooks, and then after maybe 5 or 4 to 6 sessions, something will start to build. So something that you investigate as a party will start to become like... it'll build in force, or something else will happen, or and then that'll kind of carry us through, to the end of the campaign. I am seeing this as a finite campaign too, so I'm not trying to do 4 years. I'm trying to do a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yes.
I will be tracking, though. It's still going to be. It's not. Well, there might be some, but there's not going to be a lot of Schrodinger's adventure. I think if you don't. If you don't open the box, the cat's gonna die. So if you don't rescue one person, I think it's fine not to rescue a person. Something else will happen, but that person's gonna be dead, and something's gonna. If you don't, if you don't ever make contact with Thieves Guild, whatever, they're going to be doing their thing. And actually, there's not going to be.
I like
Thieves
that.
Guild. There's going to be like 100 Thieves
Guilds,
but.
That goes a long way to making the world seem like it has a life beyond you as well, right?
Yeah, and I value that a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome.
When I'm DMing, so that's my current thoughts. So I've heard, actually from you directly, that you also are doing some. Thinking about the way your DM'd world works.
Hmm.
That you've been world building for maybe a future campaign. Is that?
Yeah. I've just started thinking about something within the last, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, kind of off and on. I'll be doing something and it'll pop up into my head again, and then I've started taking notes now about it, right, and writing some stuff down. And so right now, all I have are some, I have some broad strokes, which, since I've never done this before, I'm like, ooh, I wonder if this is how other people do it.
So before you get too deep, is this for another campaign, or is this maybe just for a possible campaign somewhere in the future, but mostly just for its own sake?
I think a little from column A, a little from column B. It's an exercise in world building, but I would also, the idea is really fun to me, and I would love to run players through it. So I think when I do my next D&D campaign as a DM, I think this will be what it is.
Okay, great.
To sort of run people through my imagination machine, so to speak. Yeah. So I have this idea of this world. It's a fantasy setting, pretty run-of-the-mill fantasy setting, as in it has the three main races of good or order or whatever are the humans, the elves, and the dwarves. And I see them.
So you conflated already. Not to hijack you too much, but so you already conflated good with order. Is that how your world works?
I think so.
Depending on
okay. I think I kind of see it as all of the evil races, the races of disorder or destruction or whatnot, are all the things that are sort of tearing at the edges of this world, tearing at the fabric of civilization.
Yeah.
Cool. And the elves, humans, and dwarves are all allied into this alliance, and they each provide a certain something to it. For the elves, they are the wielders of the most powerful magic in this world. No one else in the world is as powerful at magic as they are. But
and are these pretty D&D like Tolkien-esque versions of elves and dwarves?
I think so.
We're using those?
I think so. Cool. I think,
Cool.
And my idea for the elves is that really powerful magic users, but I kind of like that Tolkien idea that they are in a species in decline.
Okay.
And so their numbers aren't real great. And so they try not to get involved in prolonged martial conflicts. Because it's just as easy for an arrow of a tiny goblin to pierce an elven chest as it is a human chest.
Right.
So that's sort of how I had the elves figured. The humans I have figured as they are the most prolific species on this world. They're the predominant species. And they are good at world building, at conquest, and building cities and towns and spreading across the planet. So they're the best at creating this sort of infrastructure. And then I see the dwarves as being sort of, the same kind of like Tolkien-esque dwarves in their mountain kingdoms, sort of reserved. But the dwarves that I have in mind are also really interested in advancing technology. And so they're the ones that are introducing new technologies to the world to help things. Would it be trains or firearms or stuff like that? I'm not exactly sure. But I like the idea of like the dwarven tinkerers or engineers or something like that.
Yeah, that reminds me of like how in Skyrim, actually not just Skyrim, but all the Elder Scrolls, the dwarves, have vanished. There are no dwarves, but they had these cities, these all kind of steam-powered cities that are left.
Yes, yes.
And so is that kind of a similar vibe? Only, of course, they're still present and living their lives.
Exactly.
Yeah, probably not making death robots that chase you or something. Maybe I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah.
But
cool.
and I also sort of view them as kind of the same as the elves in that their numbers aren't real great. So the humans are the ones that form the armies and go out and do all the big war stuff and whatnot. Okay. So I came up.
Why are they allied? What's the reason behind
that's perfect, because I was just about to come in to say that they're allied against a common threat, which is that all of these other, I like the idea of using orcs, the traditional D&D bad guy, as an army of the hard part I've had with, and we've kind of talked about this before in the past, about the problem with orcs. And I see them as total just bad guys. I
prefer that. Yeah.
Orcs and that's it. In my world, there are no half orcs. There's none of that stuff at all. And so you just got a straight villain, which is easy storytelling.
Yeah. Are there orc babies?
No.
Kid.
No.
Are they? Yeah. Okay. Do we know where they come from?
I'm seeing more of a maybe to take either a page from Tolkien where they're like grown and in these weird pits, or the page out of Warhammer where they are basically this fungus species.
Cool. Both are great, and they complement each other, actually.
Yeah, they totally do. Yeah. Either way, I see them as being manipulated by some greater force. Some darker evil, which I haven't really wrapped my head around yet. Yeah. Whether it be gods or another, something like that. But something is controlling these orcs and giving them... it's kind of like the orcs of Sauron, right? They run in daylight, and no one's seen that before, and that kind of thing. So that is the big threat. Any one of these three species alone, even with a second species, would probably fall. The orcs would be too great, too powerful, and the world would crumble. So that's the overarching kind of threat that's going on.
Okay, cool.
The twist that I have, that I would bring this is what's happening in the world as the characters come into it, the player characters, is that the Dwarven realms are in the beginnings of a religious/political schism. Where a group is trying to take control that is isolationist and a little xenophobic. And so they want to just seal themselves up and have nothing to do with the realms upstairs, which would, like I said, referring to earlier, that'd be about it for the realms of elves and men, as the orcs would just swarm them. So,
does that isolationist group have a point? Like, do they have a legit argument where if the dwarves just caved off, they could probably be left alone for centuries while the orcs annihilated the elves and humans or something? Or
I think that's the idea. That I'm kind of thinking that originally the dwarven gods and the dwarven religion was all about being underground. Sunlight and above ground was like an other world kind of place that we don't go.
Okay. Right.
But it was through, as things do, as time passes, sometimes people get different beliefs and the policies have shifted. But there's still some old guard who likes the old ways. Yeah. And they've been able to...
In D&D, I think it's the Cloud Giants live underground, and they many of them believe that the overground, that the world where the sun is and all that is just a dream. Like, it's a dream world. It doesn't even really exist.
Yes.
And so that's a whole thing then.
Yeah. So those are the broad strokes. That's where I'm at right now.
Okay. Well, I'm wondering what the world looks like. Like, is it enormous? Is it like a continent, or is it Washington State, or is it like Rhode Island, or is it like
it's
the Hawaiian
Yeah,
Islands?
it's interesting because it's like when I look at maps of like D&D worlds, like Forgotten Realms or whatnot, I never see them as being a planet. I always think of them as being a continent or two.
Most of them, and I think most say that. I think in like Game of Thrones, they say Westeros, and then there's the other one where the Dothraki are. I dropped down a few YouTube rabbit holes where I looked into that lore, and it's like, wow, that's even that. It's huge. Like there's all this kind of backstory. I'm sure the actual George R. R. Martin fans will know all about that. And same with Faerun. With the Forgotten Realms, there have been the book that didn't maybe age that well, but it was Oriental Adventures, was supposedly set in, I think maybe it's Karatura or something. Anyway, there's supposed to be another continent in the Forgotten Realms that is like the Asian continent.
Okay.
There as well. So that supports your thing. That's the only one.
I think I'll probably toy with the idea of the action of this in the game taking place on a continent and using on a planet that I could build up later, who knows how far this thing would go. And so it'd be nice to leave room to grow with it.
Yeah. I did really the same thing with Halcyon too, where I had just decided that I was going to build on this forever for the rest of my gaming life, and so then it's the same thing with those others. I'm like, well, yeah, I can add anything here. I can add anything north or south. One of those books I got for Christmas is up in the, takes place up north, in, on a glacier or something. And I'm like, well, I'll just add that, like easy, no problem. Another one is like, it's kind of a country that needs to be put in between. It's very isolation. Yeah, I can put it right there. No problem.
Yep, exactly.
So it sounds like you're at least enabled yourself to do the same thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where else my imagination takes me and what other kind of ideas come to me, because I don't have a time frame. I'm not working on any sort of deadline on this either. So I'm kind of taking my time with it to sort of I don't know, feel it out.
Yeah, cool. And what you've got here is a really nice framework. There's still a lot of creative space there for like how you want, like what you were saying about the gods. Like, what does that look like, and what? What are the consequences of some of these structures? Or really unpacking, on that question I asked earlier about, well, what, what is law and good? There was another video, I think Matt Colville maybe did it, where, we have these axes that we talk about in D&D about law and order, or law and chaos and good and evil, but you can kind of think about that in any like axis of values. Like you could do, individual versus community. Like maybe that's what this whole world, the tension of this entire world. I mean, I'm not saying yours sounds that way, but that would be an interesting thing to do. And, travel, maybe kind of travel versus being stationary. Maybe that's an impulse of the way the culture goes and what your values are as an individual or as a group.
Yeah.
If that was your quadrants, your 4 quadrants, how would that drive things? So, anyway, I don't know what you would do with that, but that could be something to unpack too. Like,
exactly. I really wonder.
Okay.
I really wonder, like, what's next, and what's going to pop up in my head next, and what am I going to look at next? That's going to, what area of this world am I going to expand on next?
Yeah, I'm curious too. I have all these questions that you probably haven't even answered, right? I'm like, well, what's the government like?
Exactly.
Is there one human government, or are there many human governments? Are there lizard people?
Yeah.
are there whatever? Another little difference so far from what you've described is that most D&D worlds are old. Are very specifically old. Like there's at least one empire that's fallen that's been built on top of. Like that's where the dungeons come from. Like those are old fallen empires.
Right.
That's right. And I like that. That's fun and it works a lot. But that's not necessarily a part of what you told me about this world right now, right? Like this could be a relatively new world. Like it could be in its first few thousand years. Or even hundreds of years. I don't know how old. Do your elves live like thousands of years, or are they like
Oh, geez.
How old are these elves? Like,
how
old is old? So
all these questions.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love this kind of stuff.
Same with the dwarves, right? Like, because I think in D&D, and I think D&D is kind of changed a little over time. But the dwarves kind of live hundreds of years. Elves live like thousands of years.
Right.
I think, at least that's a very like Tolkien-ish, view also. But Tolkien's not, it doesn't have to be anything like Tolkien. So.
Yeah, it's a good jumping off point, but it's nice to change it up now and again too, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
those kind of things. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially now where we've had so many years of D&D. And not just D&D, lots of games being, using essentially Tolkien as a starting point. Though I think the good D&D scholars will remind us that Gary Gygax wasn't a huge fan of Tolkien, and actually the original D&D was not that much influenced. Like there was a lot of other sources that, Robert Howard and Conan the Barbarian, for example, which were actually probably more of a direct influence for Gygax. Which really are pretty different, Robert Howard and that world, Hyperborea,
yeah, totally.
I think is what it was called, was very different from Greyhawk, really, so.
Yep.
Anyway, so I'm looking forward to learning more about your
world.
I
know it's exciting because you have the whole Halcyon Vornheim thing going on, and now I have this, and I think these are things that we will be, as we go through this process, we'll be touching on both of these things again as we proceed through the life of this podcast. I'm really looking forward to it, to see where it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So, so I think that's it for our world building. But there's one last thing that's been gnawing on my mind.
A Minoc.
Yeah, right. A mind Minoc. Yeah.
Yeah.
A psychic Minoc. Ooh, we just invented another thing.
There you go.
Don't sue us, Disney, right? They care about us at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so this was something that came up, and I think it was something I saw on Twitter that started this whole thing. But anyway, so what I want to do is look at, in the third Star Wars movie, Return of the Jedi, so Episode 6. So many years ago. So spoiler alert. We will be full of talking about but just the beginning of this movie. So
yeah.
Those of you who haven't seen it for a long time, or maybe haven't ever seen it, or whatever. So the movie opens. It's the third of the original trilogy, and the movie opens with Han Solo, one of the main protagonists, played by Harrison Ford, having been captured at the end of the last movie. And so really the first third of this movie is it's a rescue mission to get Han Solo back, which is it's great, right? It's awesome stuff. And the way this movie is structured, the audience only learns about things as action moments happen around them. So we never see the main characters planning anything. We never see them, the camera never leaves the protagonist to look at something else, except to look at some of the weirdo monsters or whatever, the landscape. But there's never a wink or a nod. And at the end of it, after they rescue Han Solo, there's never any reflection on how the plan worked or what the plan was.
Yep.
And who cares? It's Star Wars, right? But when you unpack it, it really doesn't. At first, it's like, what? There's things that don't line up until you really unpack it. Right off the bat, R2D2 and C3PO, they often serve as kind of the protagonists of Star Wars. Not entirely, but they often are the we see the world through their eyes. Especially C3PO, actually. And so they walk up to the palace and to Jabba the Hutt, the main villain of this portion of the movie's palace, and deliver a message. And the message is Luke Skywalker and demanding that Han Solo be freed. And we know there's 0% chance that Jabba is going to say, "Oh, fine, we'll free Han Solo." But then he gives the droids to Luke, gives the droids to Jabba. And it's like, what? So now that doesn't make any sense, right? And there's a whole other thing around this that I don't want to unpack today, but maybe later, another day, is the restraining bolt thing. Because they don't have restraining bolts when they walk in. Because the droids, so technically I think would be free-willed. They could have abandoned or whatever, which is kind of a cool thing that even the rebellion droids are, free.
Yeah.
But when Jabba gets them, they get restraining bolts. And the Empire usually has restraining bolts. I think. I'm not certain of that.
Or they just have evil droids.
Or they're just evil. Yeah, could be too. Totally. As well, yeah. I'm thinking about the prequels, which have so many droids. But anyway.
Yep.
we'll not go down that rabbit hole. So anyway, so the droids get in, and I think it's here. Maybe not. I can't remember. But anyway, we soon learn and this is a camera shot, so this is a moment where the camera learns something that the other characters don't. And that's that Lando has infiltrated, and Lando was disguised as a guard of Jabba's guard. And so he's been there for, we don't know, long enough to give it an important job there as the guard. So the next thing that happens is that Leia, we don't know it's her at first, but she sneaks in as a bounty hunter with Chewbacca. And so she goes in, turns over Chewbacca to Jabba, which is very like, what is happening? And later on, she sneaks in and frees Han Solo from the carbonite.
Right.
And so that's another moment of like, well, what if that had worked? Because, and I think, as I'm kind of thinking about this in gaming terms, or like what was happening, every indication is that she wanted to sneak out with Han Solo.
Yes.
I think. I don't know. Do you agree? Do you read it that way?
I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
she was really. Yeah,
I think if Jabba doesn't laugh behind that thing and find them, I think they're on their way out.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and I think the movie entirely visually supports this as well. And, but she doesn't. And so my thinking is that, and this part doesn't probably work as well in game terms, but maybe you have some insight on this that I don't, is that like if player characters had done this, I don't know that this quite works, because the players go in and it's kind of a gotcha. And maybe this was a session, this could have been a one-to-one session, or when someone was missing session, or, whatever. Or, maybe this is a session that starts as one person because nobody else showed up, and then they all showed up immediately after, and then it didn't work. Because what could have happened was that Leia had to fight her way out with Han, or had to, Leia and Lando. I mean, they still had to get Chewbacca back out, and they still had to get the droids out. So maybe there was this idea that Lando could sneak out with the droids and Chewbacca
as a guard. Maybe.
Yeah, like
maybe.
But then why couldn't he do that with Han? Like, why did Leia have to do all this, and why couldn't Lando? Anyway, I don't have answers to that. But Lando was planted, so that is something we don't know. I think that's just a null set. Doesn't mean there wasn't a plan, but we don't know what it is. So anyway, Leia gets caught, and then now this is where I think it gets interesting, especially interesting, where Luke comes in, presumably the next day, full Jedi'd out. And this is kind of fun because he's like, we've never seen him like this before. He's all in black, he's got his
it's a big deal.
Robot hand with his black glove on, and and I think he's unarmed. He is unarmed as he walks in.
Yep.
But he uses his like mind trick and some kind of force powers to just walk in. So he mind tricks the advisor guy, the Twilight advisor. I can't remember his name. And
Bib Fortuna.
And it's very much, you will take me to Jabba now, and that makes sense. So like as a player character, say, imagine for a minute that Luke is the player character. He's leveled up. He's got a new power. He's got a new ability, Jedi mind trick. And so I think someone like that, an advisor, I think would probably have a low. I guess if it was D&D, the advisor would have to roll a save, and Luke's the difficulty of that would be, a 14 or something in D&D terms, right?
Yeah.
So, very, challenging for weak-willed creatures, which he was. So the guy, made the roll. It wasn't even close because he's, his wisdom save is very low, or charisma. Luke walks right in. Or maybe the DM was just like, yeah, this is going to be dumb if he doesn't, so he hand-waved it. Could go either way. And so Luke then walks in. Now, that's only the second time we've seen the Jedi mind trick, I am pretty sure, in these movies. I don't think we saw it in the second movie at all.
He does use it. Luke does use it on the Gamorrean guards as he comes in, too, those pig guys.
I think he used the choke on
Does
them.
he choke him out?
I think he chokes them.
Oh, maybe he does.
Yeah. But either way, the scene is the first time, the second time.
Yes,
that we've
yeah.
seen it. So it's been it's already been an entire, been two movies, right? It was about this far into Star Wars, the first Star Wars. And when we saw it by Obi-Wan, I mean, everyone will remember this. Like, you will, these are not the droids you're looking for. And so in that case, Obi-Wan, so back in that first movie, the first time we saw the mind trick, they were, They had the droids. They were trying to like sneak off Tatooine to go join the rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
And the droids had the plans for the Death Star. R2 did. And so the stormtroopers were all looking for them. And now stormtroopers are known for being weak-willed. And
Yep.
the lie that Obi-Wan told was very subtle. Like, it wasn't like, you will give me your gun
Yeah.
and join the circus. It was, no, these are, which is something he was prepared to believe. Like, it was a very believable thing for
Yeah.
that stormtrooper to just be
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, oh, of course. These aren't the droids we're looking for. You know, so in that case, if I was a, you know, a DM for that campaign, I would say, you know, again, very low modifier on the save for the stormtrooper. He would roll. He would probably roll at disadvantage because it was such a subtle nudge
Yeah.
that it would really be set up for success. And so, of course, very likely to succeed, and it did in that movie. Now, alternating that with Luke, Luke walks in, you know, in Return of the Jedi, pulls it off once, fine. And now he's face to face with Jabba.
Yeah.
And he tries to, like, Jedi mind trick Jabba the Hutt. So Jabba the Hutt is the leader of a major, like, potentially, like, planet-wide criminal empire. And he tries to get him to do the most ridiculous thing that Jabba would never do. And, of course, it fails, right? And so, so Jabba says something to the effect of, your mind tricks won't work on me. And I remember as a child thinking that was a big deal. And now I'm like, well, no, you know, no S. Like, this is the boss. Like, no boss is gonna
Yeah.
It would, you know, in D&D terms, it would probably be Jabba would probably have advantage. He's very strong-willed, so he has a very strong probably wisdom or charisma score, whatever. And so yeah, of course he passed. Of course he passed. So
It's interesting because I've never thought of that. I've never thought of that bit in D&D terms. But I think of it a couple different ways. Is like the player that's playing Luke is feeling their oats, right? They're feeling it after the successful things, new power, and they go in. It's like, I'm gonna roll in that 20, and it's like that doesn't happen. And combine that with maybe the fact he's never met a Hutt before, so the monster knowledge check has has eluded him. So he doesn't know that Hutts have advantage against mind control or mind altering effects. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, so I always assumed what you just said, that it was actually a Hutt thing, and there may be other media that supports this, but I'm beginning to think it wasn't about him being a Hutt. It was just about him being the boss that made Jabba resistant to the mind trick. And so then it's like, well, what? Like you were saying, like, what foolishness of Luke. But no, it wasn't foolish. Probably what happened was the real plan, which Luke actually says, I think, as they're being pulled out or something, or on their way to being, I don't remember, you know, after the Rancor business. The real plan, like the primary plan, was to get them out of the not the temple, but the Jabba's palace, and then murder everybody, I think, which is what happened in the movie. I think that was their primary plan. But then you're this far, you're like, I think all these other plans were like, well, let's see if it works.
Right.
Like, well, why not? I'm standing right here. I need to get captured anyway. Let's see. Maybe we can walk out of here with everybody. Sure. Why not? I got this new power. Let's try. So that's my current, like, reading of it, is that Luke knew the odds were very long, but he gave it a shot because it's free. Right. And there's times in gaming too where I actually like it when players do this. Like, it's like, well, just try the crazy thing. Like, maybe you can walk out of here. Like how awesome would that story have been? I mean, maybe not a great movie, but a great D&D story. Like, you'd be talking about that forever. If you like walked in, he rolled a 1, had a disadvantage, or had advantage. Jabba had disadvantage. Rolled 2 1s and failed his save, you know, and you were able to walk out. You know, I mean, I think that would have been cool. But the DM would have a rough day filling out the rest of the session. But still. But so then what we learn is what their next plan, which was the battle, right? And so then we learn, and this is really the only time the movie kind of gives us much of a clue. And there's a couple. Like Luke says, well, he tells Han, you know, we just need to get out. And then we see that R2 has the
Yeah,
lightsaber.
it's interesting because I've never unpacked that plan
Yeah, right.
because because maybe part of me said don't look too closely.
Yeah, right. Well, and like I mentioned earlier, the movie is structured that way. The movie is structured to just go for because it's good Star Wars. Like it's maybe not best Star Wars, but it's solidly good Star Wars. And the one thing about Jedi that really holds up, and the prequels really make it look good, is that it's fun. Return of the Jedi is a fun movie, right?
It really is. Yeah.
Even though some of it's nonsense, and actually maybe less of it's nonsense than we thought, because like as you think about it, I think this actually holds together because if they didn't have to murder all those guards and stuff, that would have been cool. But they did.
Yeah.
And I think Luke probably wanted to give Jabba a chance to do the right thing. I don't think they expected that, but
yep.
And then
imagine if they get out and they don't kill everybody, and now they have Jabba the Hutt as a huge enemy.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
That's cool.
Yeah, or maybe an ally. Like maybe they make an ally out of him. Which, if I was DM, that's probably the angle I would try to take.
And then and then Boba Fett doesn't go in that horrible pit. And
yes, and then it's canon that he does some more cool stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I want to bring up one thing that I've been wondering about.
Yeah, okay.
Because R2-D2 has this lightsaber in him now.
Yeah.
When does he get that? And when does Luke put it in him at the beginning? And
I think so.
Because part of me thinks that no, wait a minute, maybe Lando has it.
Oh,
and maybe Lando puts it like when things go wrong. Maybe Lando puts it in the droid to try and do the thing, and then I don't know.
Yeah,
but why didn't Luke have R2 shoot the thing out when he got dropped into the Sarlacc pit?
Right. Well, because you mean the Rancor pit?
Yes, the Rancor pit.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, get your monsters right, Galen.
Yeah, I know.
So I think. Well, first off, there's not evidence about Lando. We don't know. But to your second question about why doesn't he give it to him earlier? Because their plan was to have the fight outside of the palace. Because inside the palace, it was home turf. And so they didn't want to they didn't want to have a big fight there. That's why Lando stayed in concealment. That's why they didn't give him the lightsaber. Luke I think R2 was just was R2 even in the room during the Rancor battle? I don't know that he was.
3PO was.
3PO
I don't know
sure,
where
3PO
R2
didn't know the plan because 3PO.
You're right.
Secret.
R2's not there because he's back in the other room with the other droids.
Yeah, I think so. So I don't really know. I think R2 had it the whole time. I think back when they created the plan before they deployed everybody, they gave it to him. But Lando could have had it. I think I don't think there's textual support either way. And it makes some sense if Lando had it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because R2 was processed a little bit. Would they have looked in his little compartments? I don't know. There is a thing in the Star Wars world that droids are ignored. So maybe they were just counting on him being ignored.
Exactly.
Because Lando would have had to have it for a long time, too. He probably walked in off the street and got hired as a guard. It's a whole.
That's kind of another question I have. Is that Jabba knows Han? Yeah. Doesn't Jabba know Lando?
Oh.
maybe Jabba just doesn't do the hiring. Maybe Bib Fortuna does the hiring, and he didn't know.
Maybe he was right in the room all the time, though. He was standing right there.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Well, it must have been a different part of his life. It was later. You're right. I think Han crossed Jabba later after Lando was
after Lando got out of the smuggling business.
Yeah, and was doing his Bespin stuff. I mean, I think that's what the text suggests. Put it that way. The text
I'll take
suggests, that. Suggests that. So, man, this is great because this is all back in what I wanted to talk about when I was an English major, 20 plus years ago. I could write a whole paper on this and probably do pretty well.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And so everyone in iPod land, in iTunes land, podcast land, if you're listening to this on iTunes, please. It helps us out if you like this to give us a 5-star review. It helps people find us. And if you happen to be watching this on my YouTube channel and like the video, please click the like button, and I would invite you to subscribe if you're so inclined. And then, Galen, what should they do on Twitch?
What they should do on Twitch is, if you like this, you should follow me you can find me at Zobme on Twitch. You can also, through the Twitch on chat and stuff, if you have ideas for things you'd like us to talk about, you can go ahead and let us know. You can also do that via Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at Zobme, Zobmie. And Chad, they can find you there as well?
Yeah, I am at, it's continuing clockwise. So at Twitter, it's at CONTCLOCKWISE. So at Kant Clockwise. Yeah, I'm pretty active there and would definitely respond.
Alrighty, folks. Thanks for giving us a listen, and we'll see you again next time. Take care, folks.
All right, good night.